AFA Today on AFR Talk. If you're watching live on the American Family channel, it's a live shot of Times Square, and kind of a cloudy day today, but we're going to have nice weather compared to what we've had all spring thus far, which is an extension of winter. I'm grateful for that. Anyway, Kevin McCullough, glad to be with you on this Monday edition. You know, it's one of those things where, as the week got started, I anticipated that there would be some pushback based on the developments of last week's resignation by Brendan Eich at Mozilla. I wasn't expecting it's not completely bad news. I wasn't expecting the conservative half of America to push back as strongly as they have. There's been a very legitimate concerted effort by those. Maybe they've never embraced the traditional marriage versus gay marriage debate, but they do understand when constitutional rights are being trampled. And that's what we're moving into, an intolerant era. That's why I want you to go to thebenchthinker.com and read my column, the Tolerant States of America. Click through to the One News Now page and read it on the front page there. But here's what I want you to understand. The rules have changed. The rules are being changed. And here's another story out this morning that reinforces that. The Supreme Court refuses to hear an appeal from Christian photographers who were fined and admonished by the New York Supreme Court to work a same-sex ceremony in what could be a blow to religious business owners. The High Court decision decided not to take up the appeal means that the New Mexico ruling against them stands. That ruling is only binding in New Mexico, but could set a precedent that can be cited in subsequent cases. In this case, Elaine Photography, owned by John and Elaine Huguenin of New Mexico, was brought to court for refusing to photograph a same-sex couple's commitment ceremony in 2006. An attorney for the couple argued that the business openly advertises its wedding photography services and as a public business is required to follow the same anti-discrimination laws as any other company. Well, demonstrate for me how any homosexual person has been mistreated in light of anti-discrimination laws as they are written, and I'll eat my shoe. I bring this out in my column today, The Tolerant States of America. It's at onenewsnow.com. You should go read it. It's a good read. But here's the problem. There's claims of anti-discrimination all over the place. Oh, you're not going to let gays get married. Really? Since marriage is a union between a man and a woman, sacred before God for life, if a gay guy was going to experience discrimination in that process, the only way you would be able to test that is if he showed up at the Justice of the Peace with a woman on his arm and was denied a marriage license. That would be demonstration that he was being in some way discriminated against. When you change the definition of something, it's not the same thing as it was before. You take sand out of the recipe, take flour out of the recipe for cake and you substitute it with sand, you may be able to bake it, ice it, do everything else. It's not going to be cake. You change one of the ingredients in marriage, it ceases to be marriage. I don't care what you say. I can love my dog. I can love my pet parakeet. I can love the good weather. I can love a concert. I can love a great piece of music. I can't be married to all of them. And I don't mean to be unnecessarily graphic, but this is the day in which we live, so I have to. You can have sex with a number of inanimate objects, people, animals, all kinds of other stuff that does the physical things of sex, takes you to a certain place, and then there's the release. That actually can happen in a wide variety of things. It doesn't make it love. It doesn't make it. Under the law, for anti-discrimination to occur in the marriage process, you would first have to be applying to get married. And if you're simply admitting your commitment to a person of your same sex, you can call that any number of things, but it ain't marriage. And it doesn't matter if the laws change, it still won't be. Because the lawmakers in the United States of America were only about, several thousand years late to the definition of what marriage was. And the problem here, and I'm not mad at anybody, and I'm not filled with hate, as John Aravosis says on Twitter today. I don't hate anybody. I want everyone to be happy. I want you to know your best fulfillment comes from being who God made you to be and knowing that to the fullest extent. But at the end of the day, there are certain things that are understood. Definitions of words have meanings. Meanings count. Meanings have value. And here's another little curveball into this mess. You change the definition, and almost maybe 1 to 10% maximum of actual active homosexuals even participate in it. And so while you've created this commitment union that is now whatever for their purposes, you don't have greater fidelity within the circles of people that behave in homosexual behavior. You don't have greater commitment to those unions. You still have by far the most promiscuous group of people out there still doing whatever they want, and marriage has ceased to mean anything. So if they don't even respect the bond they have in that relationship, if they don't maintain fidelity to that relationship, it's no big deal. It didn't really mean anything to begin with. Now, I'm not one of these guys that goes, gays are the reason that everyone's going to go to hell and all the rest of it. If you violate from the very best that God has for you, you miss the mark. If you miss the mark, you miss the mark. You're on your way to hell. You have to believe in Jesus. You have to accept his sacrifice as your redemption. You have to follow him. That's the key. But at the end of the day, I don't think it was the gay movement that brought the gay movement to us. I think it was the no-fault divorce movement. And when we started dismantling what marriage meant in the culture and in society, we said, well, it doesn't really matter to us anymore. We're not going to really pay attention to it. We're not going to treat it as something sacred and valuable. Then we gave way to every other attack that came against it since that time. So I admit, this is not the problem we're in the midst of is not a making of purely sex activists that participate in homosexual behavior. It started long before that. And it basically comes from a point of rebellion in the human heart. We're sinful creatures. We want to do what we want to do, left to our own devices. And if we are married to one person, but we see someone else who we think we're attracted to, and we can con them into being attracted to us, then we think we should have the right to participate in whatever sexual fulfillment that brings us. That's human nature at its most base and carnal level. The reason God becomes important is because we weren't designed to live in the base and the carnal. We were actually designed to, on some level, try to look more like the God who made us than the beings that we would be left to our own devices. And that's where Jesus' redemption and salvation and sanctification all comes from. Those are big, $25 faith-filled words, but that's what those things represent. Going in a different direction than the direction we were going. Now the Supreme Court is saying to the New Mexico couple, or the New Mexico family that shoots photography, doesn't matter. Your beliefs don't matter. What you're going to end up promoting through your business doesn't matter. So what's the next step? This couple probably goes out of business. 888-589-8840. Okay, so there's a lot to talk about, I admit. Let's get to the phones. Calvin's in Missouri. Hi, Calvin. Welcome. You're on with Calvin McCullough on AFA Today and AFR Talk, and for some reason, Brent, I'm not able to. There we go. Thank you. Hey, Calvin, welcome.
Hey, thanks for taking my call again. A number of things. I know you don't have time. One of the basic human elements, we kind of fear what we don't know, hence a lot of those people, going into those sinful acts don't really know the word. So what do we do when we fear something we don't know? We naturally try to destroy it, basically. It's like basically, my opinion is for those who are in that act and they do know the word, even if they don't claim to be Christian, how do you get rid of your own persecution? You destroy it. Well, if I don't, deal with this problem, or if I don't acknowledge Christians or anybody else, then I don't have to live up to their standards. Thus, I don't have to be judged like they do. So I might as well just destroy it now. That's my personal opinion. Secondly, a tidbit of information. They're not done with the guy from Missoula Fox. Well, not just him. There's a post up on Ink page or inkmaster.com where the guy that put the post up went as far as to list everybody, every CEO of every major company that supported that prop in California. And in quote, I'm paraphrasing, in a nutshell, he said, basically, why are these bigots, why do they still have a job? We should purge them all. So basically, they're not just going after him, they're trying to go after everybody else, too. And I heard it earlier on The Blaze, and that's Ink page or inkmaster.com.
All right, well, we'll find it. We'll put it on the Facebook pages. But I appreciate that, Calvin. Thank you for the call, and I appreciate your perspective on that. And I'm not surprised, by the way. This is one of those things where I kind of saw this coming. You take down one. Suddenly, it's going to be very tempting for the other side to hold this as a litmus test, which makes my question even more relevant. Even more relevant. President Barack Obama had the same exact position on the issue of marriage as Brendan Eich did in 2008. He had the same exact position. He said on record again and again during the campaign, even into office, into his first term, I believe that marriage is a union of a man and a woman. I believe that marriage is a union of a man and a woman. He said it over and over and over again. In fact, that somebody in the production studio, what we should do is we should go pull all of his YouTube clips and just put them back together where he was asked about it and said it again and again. That was his view in 2008. Nobody said he wasn't qualified to be president in 2008 when he actually held that view. Nobody said he shouldn't be president in 2012 when he ran on that perspective again. It wasn't until after his second election that he changed his position. So you're talking about, so if holding that position causes such immense pain, and as Aravosa says to me today in these series of tweets, if he says, let me pull it up here. If he says, well, I'd like to pull it up, and you wonder why we never vote for Republicans when your presidential candidate always hates our living guts. See, mere disagreement gets classified as hate speech. John, I don't hate you. We just disagree on the issue. I don't hate you. I just have a different perspective on it than you do. My perspective is informed by the Bible. That's hate. You're hating. You're hating, and you're pushing us to hating our guts. You hate our guts. No, I don't hate anybody. I have a different perspective. I come to it from a different place. I ultimately have a different place of authority, and you may be upset that you're not it, but I can't be responsible for that. I have to live according to my conscience. So my baseline for why I believe what I believe, how I believe it, where I believe it, I come to my decision at a different level than you do. You come to it from a purely self-centered standpoint of what you think. First of all, you think you are, therefore you feel like you're either being punished or liberated, depending on which conversation you're having to which group of people. But in reality, what you're just doing, regardless of whatever the answer to that question is, you're just choosing to engage in behavior that you choose to engage in, and I choose not to engage in that behavior. And my faith tells me that behavior is morally wrong. I'm not out there with my finger in your face going, repent or burn. I'm not showing up at your doorstep with Fred Phelps signs saying, we hope you go to hell or anything like that. There's none of that. And Christians aren't perpetrating that at all. So when we can stop saying that mere disagreement equals hate, we might begin to have a conversation. But I did say in my article, The Tolerant States of America, it's on the front page of onenewsnow.com. You should read it. I don't normally really just push my columns, but I want you to read this one because I feel like it's that important. But I say in it rather bluntly that what we are seeing in this day and age, what we are experiencing with this particular issue, is a level of intolerance that is going unnoticed. We've heard about how intolerant people are, but no one's calling out the intolerance of this. And I actually said in one place, if the activists, and again, I separate the gay activists from the homosexual that lives their lives largely in quiet, not drawing attention to themselves and not necessarily denying what they do, but not necessarily demanding everything. I mean, there's actually been a handful of homosexual voices that have come out over the weekend and said that what was done to Brendan Eich was wrong. And I actually applaud those people for at least having enough intellectual honesty to agree to that. But in the Tolerant States of America, the column that's up at onenewsnow.com, I actually say this, that depending on when hate crime adjudication allows for it, and I believe that we will move to a place in which it does. Look at the ferocious anger that there is if you don't think that Brendan Eich getting fired or stepping down was just an awesome thing. If you disagree with that, they're pillaring you now. When hate crimes and the adjudication of hate crimes is allowed to assign the death penalty, they will. They will. Because they're going to say, if you don't agree that two men having sex is the same thing as man-woman marriage, if you don't agree with that you deserve a penalty because you're worse than a slave owner in the South in the 1800s, because that's where we're going. That's what they're saying here. They're saying that you're the equivalent of a hate-filled racist that used people as property. Kevin McCullough coming back, AFA Today, AFR Talk.